One of the 9 diagnostic traits of narcissistic personality disorder is the self-importance piece. And this is the piece where the narcissist looks and feels and acts like he's the most important thing in the room. Did he do that to you? Did he do that to his coworkers, to the people that he's around? Did you see him walk around with this aspect of this air about him that he's the most important person? This piece of self-importance, pride, this piece of like uplifting himself, looking a certain way, keeping a certain image is popular inside of narcissism and affects you a ton inside of narcissistic abuse. Stick around to know a little bit more about this. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, healing, growth, and transformation. The goal is I work with women who are trapped in toxic relationships to help them actually find freedom, to learn how it is to rediscover their voice, to step into their calling, and to rewire their mindset so they can actually write the story of their life versus having it written by the toxic abuser that's in their life currently. If that's you, then go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to be able to help you out moving forward in your healing process, and you can do that today at rawmotivations.com. When we talk about narcissistic abuse, there is 9 diagnostic traits that the DSM-5 actually states this is narcissistic personality disorder. Out of those 9 diagnostic traits, you need to have at least 5 of them to be considered diagnosable. And these are often ones that are prevalent early on inside of growing up and early on inside of early adulthood and that are continuously prevalent. So it's not a piece that it's there and then it's gone, it's there and then it's gone. No, we're talking about this being a prevalent pattern over a period of time. So when you're in a toxic relationship, one of the things you realize very quickly is that you don't actually matter. And that doesn't mean that you don't matter, you don't have worth, even though that's how it'll come across or how it'll make you feel. It just means that to the toxic guy in your life, you don't actually matter. Why? Because there's an inflated sense of self where the narcissist is looking at himself being like, I am the most important person in the room. And this big piece of self-importance is one of the most massive things that people see and recognize early on inside of a toxic relationship. How important are you compared to him? How important is the relationship compared to him? What do the conversations look like when you're having a conversation with this guy? Do they revolve around him or do they revolve around other things and other people? Or is it just around him? Oftentimes you'll see a narcissist that will guide all of the conversations to be about him, to guide all the conversations to focus on what he wants and what he desires. You're going to see this inside of conversations where you bring up something and then he relates and then takes the conversation back towards him. So you try to be able to focus on you and you want to be able to share something that's on your heart, but you can't do that. This is where you even run into the place where your emotions, your feelings, your needs, your wants, your desires are not safe for you to be able to communicate, are not safe for you to be able to share. And the reason why they're not safe is because he's not willing to actually hold space for them. Recently, my wife and I had a talk about me holding space. It's a piece that I've grown a ton in being able to hold space and being able to hold emotions. But over the past couple of weeks, there's been a couple of moments where I haven't held space. And so she had to have a conversation with me explaining and saying, hey, this is not working in how this space is not being held. You're not able to handle my emotions. Now, some of that goes back to my own ability to handle my emotions. So when I work on my emotions, I have a greater capacity to be able to help deal with her emotions. But it also comes down to a simple choice. How am I going to react? How am I going to respond? Is what she's doing right now inconveniencing me? Or is it my opportunity to be able to serve her? My opportunity to be able to help her? So the conversation was super helpful in us just realigning and re-guiding and showing me, hey, this is areas that you're missing. This is areas that I need your help in. This is areas that I want you to be able to handle all of me by me showing up who I actually am. So it's a powerful conversation and it's a great way for us to be able to connect and be able to see, hey, there's areas that I have to work on, even that piece of self-importance creeping back in where it's not even that I'm purposely doing it, it's just a habit. So it's trying to be able to realign really quickly. But this piece of self-importance, many narcissists will get to the place where they just show up in such a powerful way with their ego that they seem to just roll over you. And that's simply because they do not care about you. They do not care about your feelings. They do not care about your emotions. They don't care what you're going through. All they care about is what they're doing and what they're getting in the moment. This is hard a lot of times for people to understand because they're looking at it thinking, I would never do that. I would never act that way. I would never be that selfish. Well, we know. And that's what he's also counting on. Because if you don't act selfish, then he can continue to use and abuse you to actually get what he wants. What I need you to think about today is, where do you actually need to be selfish? And not even in a bad way, but selfish in the aspect of like spending more time with you, spending more time on your growth and on your development. Narcissists will only focus on themselves, but oftentimes people will think that that means that they love or that they care about themselves. Oftentimes we'll have people be like, yeah, Narcissist is so in love with himself, which actually isn't true. It's actually not a true statement. The whole in love with themselves would imply that they actually love and they care for themselves, but that would also produce a change. That would also produce something different in their life. You see, if a narcissist actually loved himself, then he'd be willing to actually look at himself and say, I need to change some of the things that are actually going on. But instead of actually this self love or this love for themselves, a narcissist is actually in love with their image. The image that they're actually putting out there of looking and appearing and feeling like they're all put together, like they all are the most important person in the room, when in reality, that's just not true. But he's trying to be able to have that and convince that so he feels better about himself. Narcissists have this high level of importance that they're looking at to try to be able to elevate their status. You're going to see this happen in multiple circumstances and in multiple situations where he tries to look better than you, where he has to have bigger or better successes or ideas or thoughts than you. And when you have bigger ones, he might have initially congratulate you, but then he's going to put you back down because he doesn't want you to outshine him and outshine how he actually feels about himself. One of the most popular ways that we see this happen consistently is when a toxic guy gets in a relationship with a woman that is a business owner that is a higher producer than him. Okay, business owner or even a job, but a higher producer. Okay, she makes more money, she pays the bills. He will find different ways to try to degrade her and devalue her to pull her down to his level. Even though pulling her down mentally and emotionally still isn't going to change what she produces, still isn't going to change how she shows up in the job, in the workplace, leading and delegating to the teams and the businesses that she runs. But the narcissist thinks, if I can get that lower, then I will feel better about myself. The problem is it never works. So it just continues to get worse and worse and worse while the narcissist keeps practicing crazy and does the same thing over and over and over again to try to get the different result. But it doesn't happen because it's not going to happen. So you need to understand, when we're dealing with narcissists, a narcissistic personality disorder, you're dealing with someone who's dealing with a lot of self-importance. A lot of the focus is back on himself 24/7. I used to think that the world revolved around me. Very much. Like, I would make jokes about it, not because I was just joking, but because it was my sly way of trying to be able to put it into conversations so that people would start to realize, no, it actually is about him. Like, we need to make sure that we focus on what he needs, what he wants. But there's this thought process and this mindset that went through my head that really had me look at myself being the center of the universe, thinking that everybody in my life was seriously meant there to serve me, to help me. And when they had something come up that was inconveniencing or something that didn't let them do what I wanted or needed them to do in the moment, that was frustrating. That was a betrayal. That was a piece of like, don't you know who I am? Is very much prideful, very much this piece of being so filled with self-importance that I wasn't willing to actually look in the mirror and see me. And that was one of the hardest things to do inside of my growth and my transformation, was the unwillingness to actually see who I actually was, because it meant I would have to take off the mask and I would have to realize I'm actually not as important. I'm not as significant as what I thought. In fact, it's just me, and I'm just thinking about what other people are thinking about me, but they're not actually even thinking about me at all. They're not even focused on me. I'm the one that's focused on me. I'm the one that's focused on creating an image that everybody else likes. But in reality, I was too concerned and caught up with other people think, with what they do, all these different aspects, versus actually just living my life and showing up in a positive way to move forward, to grow and develop who I am. All of these different things were one of the hardest pieces to be able to break down, was the piece of self-importance, breaking down who I was, breaking down how I showed up, breaking down all of this mask stuff. And so doing this started to eat away at my ego, started to chip away at like the pieces of guilt and shame, started to chip away at all the different pieces I'd constructed to make myself feel better about myself. Which meant that I also started going through really, really dark times where I really hated a lot of different pieces about myself. I hated the situations, I hated the circumstances, all the things that I had caused and created, I hated those. And I started to hate myself. In going through this, the goal then was, how do I actually shift my mindset, my thought process, so I don't stay stuck inside of this mind place, so I don't stay stuck here trying to figure out, how do I actually liberate myself? How do I actually get freedom from being this abusive asshole. I remember sitting across from my therapist and asking one time, am I a man or am I a monster? And her looking right back and saying, maybe you're both, depending on what you choose and how you show up. And so the whole goal over the past several years has been, how do I make different choices? How do I show up different so that I'm engaged in a positive way? So I'm actually helping people break free from their mindsets so that I can also continue to break free from mine. How do I shift who I am on a day-to-day basis? How do I transform how I actually act, interact, hold space, hold emotions, remove the mask, get rid of the self-importance? And it's been a massive, massive journey that's never going to stop. But it's amazing and it's wonderful along the way as I continue to have different versions of me die off so I can continue to grow and develop who I'm actually called to be. If this resonates with you and you're a woman that's trapped in a toxic relationship with a guy like how I used to be, love to be able to help you actually rediscover you. Find your voice, learn how to step up into your power, have confidence and clarity in your life so you can step forward with certainty and make the decisions that need to happen for you. If I can help you with this, go to rawmotivations.com today.